Bergen-Fischer Media.
Is it possible to change things? Can I rise above the flood? Will the process cleanse my soul?
Hey guys, want to welcome everybody back to the In the Blood podcast. My name is AC Bergen-Fischer, and with me on video is Jason the Dice Man Moore.
Hello, everybody.
It feels kind of weird. I'm so used to recording audio only. I'm not really sure what to do with my hands when the camera's rolling.
Just don't pick your nose.
Okay.
And if you do, don't eat it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's actually solid advice no matter what the context, but I think especially here with the people watching, listening. I mean, I don't know. We've both been told we've got faces made for radio. I'm hoping that that's not true. I'm hoping people think we're beautiful on camera.
Yeah, look at me. I'm beautiful.
Well, I mean, I've been called ugly in the past, which kind of leads me into what we were hoping to talk about today, which
yesterday's the past. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about see already I'm on camera and I'm forgetting that the camera's rolling. I'm looking everywhere except at the screen. Okay, focus. I was thinking about a conversation I had with my therapist late last year, and she said something that really bothered me. And in the moment, I pushed back on her. I'm not going to say what my pushback was because I want to leave some room for you to have thoughts as well. But I was talking about something that bothered me, something from my past, and her take on it was, you can't let your past define you. And my nonverbal response was, ugh. So without me getting too deep into it, and I do have a couple of quotes on the subject. Did you want to share some thoughts before I get into the quotes?
I don't think the past defines us completely. I think our past experiences, especially the mistakes, have taught us lessons and shaped our perspectives. You know, however, the choices to change always lays in the present moment, I think. So though we reflect back on our past, I don't think letting go entirely is appropriate either.
Well, fair enough. I think that's a good place for us to jump off. I've laid my foundation. You've laid yours. Do you want to get into a couple of these quotes that I Googleized and see if that sparks anything more?
Sure.
Okay, the first one was from somebody named Blake Mays. And Blake said, "Don't let your past define you. Let it mold you into the person that you want to be."
I agree with that. There's
Yeah.
aspects of our past that, you know, have heavier foundations in who we are today than others. But even the small ones give little nuances to our characters, I think. So that quote for me resonates very, very true.
I agree partially with it. I mean, I do think that we should use our past as a tool to define who we want to be. I don't still think that in the way that most people would frame it, I don't believe our past. I don't believe we should try avoiding letting our past define us, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. But we can touch on that in a little bit. I don't want to play everything right up front because then we got nothing to get to.
Yeah. I think we also have to take a heavy look at the balance between reflection and progress.
Fair enough.
You know, if we look too much in the past, you know, like I hate that statement, well, that's your past, get over it, move forward, blah, blah, blah. Though you do move forward, letting go of your past, in my opinion, it means almost like, well, forget who you were, worry about who you are. But if you forget who you were, that means you start forgetting and disacknowledging. Is that a word? Well, it is now. It means that who you were in the past doesn't matter. But I think who you were in the past is a major trump card because that's what you play off of to be who you are today.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw something at the point that you've made. Maybe it's a bit of a ridiculous example for people who are listening. I want to illustrate that, we're not coming from a place where we're just trying to tear down the system because we're contrarian on some level. We really have spent some time thinking this stuff through. So for whoever's listening and like cringing, thinking, well, the past shouldn't define us. We should let go of the past. Well, I'm tempted to say something derogatory, but I'll refrain. Because it's the first time you and me on video in a long time. At least just the two of us. We'll
Yeah,
be friendly, right? Okay, so
okay.
you're speaking to me right now in English. I'm speaking to you in English, right?
Right.
When did you learn English?
My whole life.
In the past?
And in the future and in the present. Yeah.
But if you let go of the past, you don't have any language skills at all.
I think it's a bit on the outside, but yeah,
Literally every skill you have,
has come from
every ability, everything you know how to do, never mind the present and the future, you don't know how to do anything that you didn't learn in the past.
Mhm.
Good, bad, and in between. There's that whole thing about the baby in the bathwater that's popping into my mind right now. There are ways in which we need to not just acknowledge the past, but cling on for dear life because it's loaded with good stuff.
And it's loaded with bad stuff that teaches us not to use that shit as well.
Which can become good stuff.
Yep.
So either way, I don't know. Like, I think this is going to be a complex discussion, but letting go entirely, I think right up front, it's safe to say,
Bullshit.
yeah. Well, that's a very concise way of putting it, right? I mean,
Yeah, fair enough.
so yeah, I won't build on it. I'll just leave that alone.
Well, you know what? If so, we've done multitudes of different versions of podcasts in the past, and we consistently listen to past episodes of what we've done to learn about ourselves. Heck, we learned how to be better speakers because of listening to ourselves and using it progressively to the future. If we let go of
I've
all
learned,
that,
yeah.
what are we? Ums and ahs for like 45 minutes.
And me not giving you a chance to speak.
Fair enough. And us
And
arguing every single point out of anger rather than out of conclusion.
mistreating each other. We learned this from not just reflecting on the past, but listening to recordings of the past.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, so I think that leads us nicely into the next quote that I Googleized by Lewis Howes. He said, "Your past does not define you, it prepares you. Embrace your challenges as opportunities for growth and learning."
Mm. I have to push back on that. I don't agree with it preparing you. You learn from your situations, but moving forward in the now, in spite of or because of, is what prepares you for tomorrow. So though it's a tool, I don't think it's what actually prepares you.
Yeah, like my pushback, maybe it's a little bit more hair splitting-y. It's a word, look it up.
That is now.
We got to put that on a t-shirt. It is now, and just no context.
Yep.
But when he's talking about how the past prepares us, if I think back on past experiences, any preparation that was happening, it only seems like preparation in retrospect. In the moment, it was just stuff that was going on around me that I was reacting to, I was responding to.
Mhm.
I can look back and say, okay, now that I think about it, that experience did prepare me for this next similar thing, which was to come. Not so much, I guess, a case of preparation as familiarization,
Right.
adaptation. There's a lot of things going on that I wouldn't class as preparation, if that makes sense.
Mhm. I would agree with that. There's a lot of hair splitting, but I think if you take it down to brass taxes, just because we went through a tough thing in it and it made us stronger, just like working out your body, if you do 50 reps of lifting weights on your back, tomorrow you're going to be able to do 51. It's not preparing me. It is working out in the moment. Tomorrow, maybe I'm too tired and I only do 50. It's not necessarily preparation. It is experiential to get me thinking, yes, I can do it again. I don't know what the
I kind of get the feeling that each of us in our own way is splitting hairs to some degree. If anybody listening thinks that that's the case, or maybe you're splitting hairs in a different way, either way, we'd love to hear from you in thebloodpod@gmail.com.
Mhm. And don't forget to go to YouTube and actually watch.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, the next quote is from author unknown. I wonder if that's somebody's legal name. That'd be actually kind of funny, right? Change your name to unknown just so when you get quoted, be like, yeah, that was mine, even if it wasn't yours.
You know that author unknown quote back in 1876? Yeah, that was me.
Anyways, the unknown author said, never be defined by your past. It was a lesson, not a life sentence.
100%. If it was a life sentence, I would be so screwed.
This is interesting because so far you and I have mostly agreed.
Oh, that's never happened before.
Um, this one, I'm thinking, no, this is exactly the kind of sentiment I was getting from my therapist that I wanted to give a resound. Hey, I'm on camera. I don't have to say it. I can just show it. If you're listening in the audio podcast, you're missing out. But this was my reaction.
Mhm.
I don't like the framing of it saying it was something about it was a lesson, not a life sentence. I don't like the idea of life sentence. In a way, though, it kind of is because I am the sum of my past experiences. I can't let go of these things. It's not just lessons learned. Everything that's ever happened leading up to this moment has defined me. This moment is continuing to define me, and a moment from now, this moment will be the past.
Okay, but at any moment, you can make a right turn and let go of all that crap and just totally decide to be something that you have never done before.
And a millisecond later, that decision you're talking about is the past. We can't avoid the past.
Right.
We
And I
can
agree.
we yeah, like we can alter the trajectory of our future.
Mhm.
We can't alter the trajectory of our past. And I think this is like the part that really bothers me, saying, well, yeah, it was a lesson, not a life sentence. I don't know that you can have one without the other. We're either way. Actually, if anything, we're not guaranteed to have learned anything valuable from the past, but I think whether we like it or not, we are obligated to be bound to the past in every meaningful way. At least that's how I see it.
I don't think we learn anything from the past, period, unless we apply ourselves to that lesson. I know some really dumb people who have done some really dumb shit, and tomorrow they're going to do the same dumb shit.
Yeah. And so, yeah,
That's a life sentence, in my opinion.
so it's okay. So, well, I guess we're not, well, in a way, maybe we are kind of like Siskel and Ebert. We don't have to agree.
Right.
And
100%.
it sounds like there's, yeah, whatever.
If there sounds
Good
like there's people
conversation.
that, if it sounds like there's people that disagree, you're right. There are people that disagree. We disagree in this state. and it's not causing conflict. It's not causing ripples. Oh my god! But it's allowing us to voice our opinions, and for us, our opinion is correct in this sense. There's not a factual or anything um, defining that's going to make us argue and push it aside because we're grown-ups and
Now, when
we've
it
learned that
comes,
from our past.
yeah, and when it comes to interpreting any form of literature, quotes, whatever, I mean, it's such a subjective experience. I mean, I know for a fact that I am 100% correct. You know something different. Maybe the listeners do too. I don't know.
Maybe it is different because of our pasts.
So I kind of like the last conversation that we had on video. I'm just going to keep on talking about the video here for those who are
With
still
Baba
listening to the
Sam.
audio podcast. Well, yeah, I mean, I liked the way he challenged my perception of truth. I mean, basically saying that whether we like it or not, all we're able to see is effectively a filtered version of everything that's going on around us. We're limited by our own understanding. We're limited by our unavoidable biases, right?
Mhm.
So, as individuals, to try to determine what is true factually and what is not, that's challenging.
100%. And I
Even
think
when we
that
get into the, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I think that brings up a necessity. Like we have to, because of the statement that we think of, we have to redefine letting go as acceptance. Now everybody says, well, you got to let go of the past. You got to do this. You got to do that. Well, why can't you change that and just say, you know what, you have to accept it and move forward because it's part of who you are.
No, I like that because then you're hanging on without um, getting dragged down by it.
Mm-hmm. And it also allows you to remove, if you work through it, it allows you to remove any kind of, in my opinion, regret. I don't regret anything I've done in the past. Honestly, I will say that I will die on that hill because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be. And I really like who I be right now.
Who you be?
Who I be. Bzz,
No, and you've really got me thinking about this whole acceptance versus letting go thing, right? I mean, like again, as I've done many times in the past on this show, uh, I'm going to use a ridiculous analogy. So, as a lot of people know, I'm living in Calgary, and it get cold here sometimes. So it snowed last night, and it's pretty cold today. Like not as cold as it's gonna get, but it's cold enough where the snow isn't melting. Now I can let go of the idea that, well, the snow fell last night. I'm just gonna let it go. I'm not bound to that. So I'm gonna go outside in shorts and a t-shirt because I've let go. Because the snow happened in the past, I'm gonna be fine. No, that's stupid. If I accept, like what you're suggesting, I accept that it snowed, I accept that it's cold outside, now I can prepare for the experience. I can put on a coat, I can put on some warm socks, maybe even some shoes to go with the socks. I don't know. But I can bundle up. I can prepare for the experience, right?
right.
And
Actually, I
I
think that's a
think
great
light,
analogy.
not ridiculous.
No, not at all.
Damn,
I
I
think
gotta
that's a
try harder.
fantastic one. Yeah, I do. So I guess that would kind of bring us to using, well, see, I want to say using the past as a reference, not a roadmap, but I think using the past as a reference to the roadmap that has developmentally become us. You know, taking the sum of everything we've done and, you know, compartmentalizing it a little bit. And see, I learned to say that word, by the way.
Actually, yeah, you did get it out in one try this time.
Right. Taking segments that apply to what we're doing now. Like I don't take my whole past and say, well, you know what, because of everything I've done, I do this now into one singular. I put it into quadrants so I can pull, use, put away, pull, use, kind of like a filing cabinet.
So that's exactly what I was thinking about. Was like you said, not a roadmap. I'm picturing like a table of contents or an index, or for those of us who are super duper old, the the card catalog at the library.
Right. But as the individual, you can still look back and trace what happened as a roadmap to where you are now, allowing you now, because you have the roadmap, to prepare for the future. Not that it had prepared us, that it's give us the tools to prepare for the future.
Fair enough. Okay, well then, based on that last statement, I think I already have a way to prepare for the future, which is how you're going to react to this next quote. Kasha Leo said, "You can't let your past define your future. Once you get that figured out, you begin to understand the joy of living in the present."
Actually, because of our conversation with Bubba Sam last week, I actually totally agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get lost in the weeds here. I think we both made it clear what we mean by, the past defining or not defining our future. I'm focusing more on the second half, saying that once you basically figure out certain things, you can kind of give yourself to living in the moment. You understand based on the path already traveled, all the things that you thought were going to kill you, all the things you didn't think you'd be able to live through, and you did. It gives you confidence to approach what comes next. Like the next thing that's really, really hard, the next thing that breaks my heart where I want to give up. I know I'm going to survive because this other stuff didn't manage to kill me. It knocked me to my knees for a season,
Mhm.
but I did get up and I'll keep getting up. I've proven to myself and I've proven to the universe, whatever you want to call it, that, you know what, I can do it.
Right, but you should only have to prove it to yourself. What other people think doesn't freaking matter. You know, I love you for who you are, and other people, they don't like it, they don't like it. Screw the universe.
I mostly agree with you saying like what other people think doesn't matter. There's a few people whose opinions I value. I mean, I'm not gonna like necessarily let you steer my bus,
Right.
but I may ask you for directions once in a while.
Mhm.
Like, hey,
Now sorry, I have to be strong enough also though to say, here, this is my opinion. If you choose not to use it, I can't be butthurt and everything else. Throw it away. If you can pick it apart and use little pieces out of it, then do that. But I have to be a strong enough friend to give you the opinion without judgment or care, and you do what you need as an individual with it.
and just so everybody who's listening or watching knows, I mean, this isn't just something he's saying for the sake of the podcast. I do phone this guy fairly frequently, and like when I'm in crisis, the disclaimer he gives me every time he offers any piece of input or advice, even when I've specifically requested it, the first words out of his mouth are always 100% of the time, okay, brother, all I can do is give you my perspective. You use as much of this or as little of this as you need. If you need to crumple it up and throw it away and move on, that's fine. My feelings won't be hurt, but, and then he'll launch into whatever I asked for.
Right.
I can't think of a single time where he's made a suggestion that I've ignored, even when it's blown up in my face. I don't think you ever once said, I told you so to me.
No need to. I don't
I
need
mean,
to
you've
hold
been
it
there to
against
pick up
you.
the pieces, even when I've done something that was incredibly fucking dumb.
I can think of a marriage or two, yeah. Sorry. Something that we glossed over that I think actually needs a lot of attention is the power we have um, for like self-compassion. Well, self-compassion and forgiveness, allowing us. I think that's part of the reason why I hold no regret, because everything that I've done in the past or has been done to me, either way, I have either had enough compassion in myself to work through it, or I've just outwardly forgiven myself. Let it go. I don't need to hold on to it. I learned from it. I used it as a productive experience. In the moment, I probably blew it all to hell and turned it into a piece of shit. But retrospectively, looking back, I've used a lot of stuff, and I've given myself the opportunity to forgive myself. I've allowed myself to have some self compassion, so I can be progressive in moving forward. Because without that, I think that's when you hold on to regret, because you just can't forgive yourself. You got all that self doubt, you got all that self loathing because, oh my God, I'm such a bad person. I did this, I did that. Kind of like, in my opinion, what AA does to people. You feel so bad for your past. Now you got to move forward, but don't let go of it. Keep looking on it and hold somebody else's hand to get you along the way. Well, if you let go of that hand and you take all this bullshit that's happened in your life and you just say, I'm done, I'm going to forgive myself. Now, I'm not saying it goes away overnight. It's going to take work. It took me 54 years to let go of some shit. It took me 48 years to let go of the crap with my mom. But I had to, in the end, own my crap and move forward. So the only way I can do that is by having a bit of compassion for myself and allowing myself to forgive me and move forward. I think that's the only way you can get rid of any kind of.
Yeah, I like the way you framed that, the self-compassion component. I mean, for me, I would add a little bit to that, which is that I mean, I don't. Somebody asked me once, "Do you have any regrets?" And I said no, like no regrets, and they seemed genuinely surprised by that. But the reason I have no regrets is because every thought, every action, every word spoken, every interaction, every experience, just everything that's ever happened, even things that I didn't realize were happening, they might have been happening peripherally, they've all led me to this person who I am today. And I've learned to like this person. If I change any one of these tiny experiences in the past, like the reverse butterfly effect, effectively, I don't end up here.
Right.
And it's not like I feel like I was meant to be here in some cosmic purpose, but I like where I am. I like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be getting, well, actually, I don't think it's like off topic. I mean, it sort of explains like where I'm at. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and I wish I could remember the name of it because I like giving shout outs to people that have been gracious enough to host me. But we were talking about the overarching conversation was, being friends with your ex kind of thing. Is it possible? And I had learned years ago that yes, it is possible to be friends with your ex. Like, speaking from my own experience, of course. For me, the tool I used is I realized that the child I had with my ex was going to have a lot of characteristics of his mother. All these things I couldn't stand about her, I knew there was a good chance that he would exhibit any or all of these things moving forward. And if I wanted to be able to effectively love and appreciate my child, I needed to get comfortable with who their mother was all about, right? So that was like step one of my thought process. Now the bookend to that, and the thing that I only like within the last month figured out, is that the same is true of the way I look at myself. If I want to love my kids and I hate their dad, then I'm going to have a real struggle loving my kids. I mean, and this is coming from somebody who struggled with suicidal ideation a lot. I mean, a lot of self-loathing, just even just like benign moments, like those ones where you want to smack yourself on the forehead because you've done something dumb. It's like stupid, stupid, stupid.
Could have had a
I
VA.
may as well be it may as well be slapping my kid on the head because he's going to do the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be that kind of dad. And also, when I look at how um, I've always avoided saying anything intentionally negative about the mothers of my children. I mean, if they ask a direct question, like as direct of an answer as I can give without being a jerk about it.
Mhm.
I've avoided that because I didn't want to insult them. I don't want to insult one half of who they are effectively by insulting their mother. Now, when I'm being hard on myself and they witness this, do you think it sends a different message? No. So, anyways, that's my TED talk on self-acceptance.
Mhm. I have
The past does play into that. So go
because
ahead.
because you put that there. I want to give a little bit of a difference of opinion here, because my kid's mother wasn't in the picture, and I did not talk bad about her. I did not slam her. But if my children asked me a direct question, I gave them the honest, direct answer. And I always paraphrased a lot of stuff with, okay, this is where I'm seeing it. This is where I'm coming from. This is my opinion. This isn't your opinion. You asked me a question, so I'm going to give you my opinion. Because she didn't have that influence. The kids didn't pick up those traits from her. All the traits they got, well, I'd say 99% of the traits they got came from me. So I would never slam her, but I'm not going to lie to my kids either. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything either. Different um, viewpoint on raising our kids, but also a very drastic difference in the home as well.
Okay, I'm tempted to get into the weeds on this one, but instead I think we'll put a pin in that particular topic for a future episode because I think the whole dialogue about nature versus nurture deserves some actual time and attention. We can't do that in a drive-by shooting.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so I got one last quote, and I think that would probably be a good way to sort of like bring ourselves into the final descent.
Actually, let me ask you one question. I want to hear your opinion on um, reflection and progression. You've touched on it a little bit, but you've never given a where do you think, or do you think it splits off between reflection and progress, using our past to get where we are?
Well, if you'd waited half a second, that question would have been framed beautifully by this last quote, which I'm just going to give before I get into my answer. It's by Brianna West. She said, "Your perception of your past changes as you do."
Oh, that's kind of cool, actually, how that happened. That's awesome.
In the simplest terms, I would answer with that quote.
But that's using somebody else's words. I wanted to use your words.
Mm, I'm kind of stuck now. I don't want to like just like reword what she said, even though like the sentiment is effectively the same. I mean, as I go through things, as I interpret my view of the past, I mean, it very, very much does change based on who I am in the moment. I mean, if I go back and, for an example, like taking from something we touched on earlier, when you and I were recording our first podcast together, we had accidentally left the recording running while we got into an argument.
Mhm.
We didn't listen to the recording of that argument right away. I mean, when I realized what was happening, I hit stop. We filed it, and then a few months later, then or a few weeks or whatever it was, we got back to it, and we got to listen to ourselves be jerks with each other in basically real time. After that, we learned that, you know what, our approaches with each other are unhealthy and super duper toxic. Our responses to each other's approaches, same.
Yep.
We identified some really unavoidably huge problem areas, and we learned how not to do it, and we made adjustments so that in the future we could handle things differently. Okay. So that started us on a healthier path, but I wouldn't say it put us on a healthy path objectively. There were still lessons to learn. We were capable of getting to that next level because of the adjustment that had been made. We're still on that path where we're taking the sum of our experiences, the sum of our past interpretations, revisiting, reframing, retooling, moving forward. As we change, in a way, so does our past, because I can look back and think, wow, you're a real prick. You give me a little bit of context for where you come from. I look back and think, wow, you are a real hurt person lashing out because of things that you didn't ask for.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyways, that's my lengthy and zigzaggy answer.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, while I don't think the past is something we have to dwell on, I think we have to be open-minded enough to look and use what we've had in the past to grow who we are tomorrow. And I think people who go out in cars, a lot of the people who go out in cars have the reversible dash cam. It records outside and it records what's happening in the cabin of the vehicle. And a lot of people I know while they're driving get in arguments with their spouses. And I'm going to put a shout out there and I'm going to put a challenge like, sit down after you guys have calmed down, take that recording, and both of you objectively watch it. Don't sit there and pick, well, see, I was right about that point. Oh, I was right about this. I was right about that. All you're doing there is causing problems. Watch it objectively. Look at your other point, look at your partner and say, okay, my partner was right about this. My partner was right about that. My partner was right about this. See their perspective and allow it to turn your argument into growth. Deliberately do this. If you're sitting in a room and you feel an argument coming out, record on your phone. Don't even tell your partner. Hit record on your phone. Record the argument. Have the argument for real. Don't butter your words and make you sound good. So when you listen to the recording, you sound all that. Have the fucking argument. Get the frustration out. Allow it to be a vent. And then sit down afterwards. When you calm down and all the shit is settled, you flushed and it's all gone away.
A long time afterwards, not 10 minutes afterwards.
Right. Yeah, a good amount of time. Maybe 3-4 days, maybe a week. I wouldn't say go a month, but go a week, go 5 days. And allow yourself to be objective. Allow yourself to find your faults in the conversation because that's how you're going to grow. Listen to where your partner was right and use that to see their perspective. And that's going to allow you to grow. That's what we do. We do it on a regular basis. We don't sit down together and listen to it anymore. But you'll say, hey, remember this episode? Remember how we argued about this or we disagreed about this? Now we see likewise. A couple of days later, I'll listen to the episode and I'll use what you said. And I will put it in my head and I will use it to grow our relationship, to grow me so we can be better communicators. That's the most effective way to use your past to become better for tomorrow, in my opinion.
Well, I was going to ask you for a closing thought, but I think you've already done that. So just wanted to end. Well, I was just thinking, based on your recommendation, I had a coaching client come to me a while ago, and they had asked me, like how do I figure out how to get along with that difficult family member? Like I can't avoid them, but we can't seem to like stop butting heads. Everything turns into an argument.
Mm-hmm.
What do you recommend? And maybe it was a silly recommendation just because like our past experience with podcasting together has been so positive because before we started podcasting, every conversation would jump off into something ugly. We would go sometimes just based on a disagreement over pizza toppings. You know what? I'm not going to talk to you for the next 9 months. We argued over things constantly. And then we started the podcast and everything turned around. So my advice to this person was maybe look at starting a podcast with them. It's just because you end up recording so many conversations and because the intent isn't so much to dig into each other, you're collectively digging into a topic that you're both interested in. Agree, disagree, in between, you're learning about each other's process. You're learning about each other's thought patterns. And ultimately, I think that's what we're trying to do, or what we should all be trying to do, not just in navigating each other, but also in navigating ourselves. I mean, using the past, like Jason had mentioned, not as a roadmap, but as a reference guide, as a tool to inform our thought process. But always with the idea we want to do better in the present, we want to do better in the future, always moving forward, always improving, always learning, putting aside the offense, putting aside the judgment, putting aside the harsh criticisms of others and of self, learning to accept the fact that even if you're dealing with trauma at the hands of parents, well, your parents were imperfect humans. And if you got kids, hopefully you figured out that you are too. Use that pain from the past to drive a better life for your kids moving forward. Always, like, yes, we are attached to the past. It's valuable stuff. It's like having this like whole encyclopedia strapped to your back at times.
It is.
But
It's
our
an
focus,
encyclopedia of you.
but we have to be like focused on the path ahead, glancing back once in a while to see if there's anything valuable back there, see if there's anything creeping up on us that needs to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal should not be to be facing our past and then walking backwards and tripping and stumbling blindly every step of the way. That is dumb. In that sense, like, I wouldn't say let go of the past. I'd say stop focusing entirely on it.
Right. And never get the opinion in your head. No, you know what? I don't need to record it. I'll just make sure I remember it properly. You don't remember your tones. To somebody who used to think, no, I knew what I said. I knew what came out of my mouth. It was the tonality behind it that I had an error in my head. So if you listen to it, you'll learn your bullshit tones that you're throwing at other people.
Well, there's a lot I don't see about myself. Okay, so I'm 6'4". I'm a fairly big guy, and I've been told that I've got, like, when I'm trying to make a point, especially when if I'm getting a little heated. When you got somebody who's 6'4" and looks pissed off, that frames the situation very differently, right? So when I'm remembering a situation, to your point, I'm thinking, well, I was calm inside. I was confused, maybe a little aggravated, but I mean, there was no malicious intent. But you reacted to me like I was about to beat the crap out of you. Why is that? And when I take my emotional nonsense out of the way and hear the response that's coming back, well, and this is an actual conversation I had with one of my exes. She was like 5 foot nothing, weighed maybe 100 pounds. She said, "You're literally double my size." I couldn't help it. It was survival instinct. I was afraid. You looked scary. So my recollection of the interaction, I can't even say it was a fight. It was a heated conversation that she reacted to as though it was a huge fight, or she reacted as though I was dangerous. I couldn't figure out why. And when I heard her explanation, I realized, you know what? She wasn't being unreasonable. I had thought she was unreasonable. I thought she was unfairly judging me, but trying to see the world from her eyes, damn, I really had some thinking to do there. All of us have thinking to do. And again, I'm going to keep on harping on Baba Sam from the last conversation we had. I hate to say perception is everything, but our perception definitely taints everything.
Right.
It affects everything. So this week, my friends, as you go through your life, as you think about your past experiences, as you interact with your friends, family, coworkers, even with strangers, just think about how your perception is limiting you. Think about the value that can be found in your past. Think about the future you want to define for yourself based on that. And until next week, much love.